Mary Lee Nichols. I'm a professor in the teacher education department or program, and I'm really excited that you're all here tonight. I want to just give you a little background about our read-in. This is an event that we've had for the last, well, we started 10 years ago and joined the Wisconsin State Reading Association. They sponsored a read-in and challenged library participants or patrons and universities and colleges and schools to read for 3 days and see how many books they could read. And at that time, they focused the attention on Wisconsin Native American authors and illustrators. And because I was a member of the Wisconsin State Reading Association, I thought, we need to get in this too. So we brought a whole bunch of books over from the library and put out all the books in our collection. And we have a beautiful collection of excellent literature that is representative of the many cultures that make up our society. And these are the books that we want to see in classrooms. And so in our teacher education program, we encourage the future teachers to use these books so that students can see themselves in the materials that are in the classrooms, and they can also see all the people that make up our multicultural society. So this is an event that just got bigger and bigger every year. And then there was this year with COVID, we decided to put it online, and with the great help of Caitlin Bauman, it happened, and we're really excited about that. So we have, as part of this, we have events every night, but we also have that same pledge to read. Typically we'd have people sign in and write down the books, sort of log in the books that they've read. But this year, with it being online, there is a link in the chat or on the website where you found this information that will take you to, it's a survey form. It's a pledge for you to, read some books. And we have also a link to the library where you can find electronic copies of great multicultural literature from all levels, from board books to novels and everything in between. And we have electronic books. We have what, I don't know if you're familiar with Tumble books, but they're kind of narrated and animated a bit, kind of like a Reading Rainbow type book, and really fun to access. So all that's available. The Superior Public Library has a collection that they're promoting as well. So lots of good reading for you this week and beyond. So tonight we have a special treat for everybody. So Cassie Brown is with us tonight. Cassie Brown is a coordinator of the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion for Multicultural Programs and the Office of Intercultural Student Success and the First Nations Center. And she brings with her a great wealth of experience making Dreamcatchers. And so she's going to show you how to make a Dreamcatcher. And I'll just also, being here tonight, you're entered in this drawing, but we have lots of giveaways. We had an author here last night, 2 authors. Here's the books. And we also have these great books here written by your Dreamcatcher instructor. So make sure you get into every event that you can, so you have lots of chances to win, including the sign up for the pledge to read. So without further ado, Cassie.
All right. Ujuga kanawaya gawin na pajunin ta na shinabe musi nindash nindo jubem pangi go. Cassie jaganashi mon indishnakas, my ngats cleo jubimon indishnakas, my nindo dem, wikwidong nindunjba, UWS nindanoki. So hello everyone. What I said was I don't speak the Ojibwe language very well, but I speak a little Ojibwe. When I was growing up on my home reservation, I was always taught to add kind of that humbling piece in there because even our fluent speakers are having to adapt and kind of change the way we speak our language because our language is so descriptive. We have new words for things every day. So traditionally, we wouldn't have words for bicycle and airplane and things like that. But because of how descriptive our language is, we're able to continue adapting with the changing technologies and growing technologies of today's world. So I always like to say that I don't speak the language very well, just speak a little Ojibwe because I'm still learning my language as well. But then I said my English name is Cassie. My Anishinaabe name or my spirit name is Little Wolf Woman or Maingatskwe. And I am Wolf Clan from Keweenaw Bay, Michigan, which is a little tiny place in the middle of nowhere in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And I also said I work here at UWS. So I am the coordinator of our First Nation Center in our Office of Intercultural Student Success, like Mary said. And I've been working here at UWS for, I think, almost 3 years now. So it's been a little bit. And before that, I worked at Northland College in Nashville, Wisconsin. So I've been doing this a long time. I've been making Dreamcatchers since I was 6. So a lot of practice here. So if something doesn't make sense, it's because it's just kind of muscle memory for me at like this point. So if something doesn't make sense, please let me know. But if you picked up one of the Dreamcatcher kits from the YU, in there's a couple things. There's your Dreamcatcher hoop, there's your sinew, and then there was kind of information about making dream catchers, which we'll kind of talk about as we make these. So today's dream catchers, the ones that we are making today, that were in your kits, are not what is traditionally used to make dream catchers. Usually it would have been red willow or some other like flexible natural material to make the hoop. And then sinew, the kind we're using today is artificial sinew. So it's just a waxed kind of nylon thread. Traditionally, the sinew would be made out of like the tendons of animals that were hunted and harvested. But today we're using these fun metal Dreamcatcher hoops and artificial sinews. So the first thing that you are going to want to do is to take one end of your sinew and tie it anywhere on your hoop. It doesn't really matter. Give it a couple knots, like 2-3 knots, and then to make sure that it stays, just give it a good tug and see if it stays on there. Because one of the things with waxed sinew is that it can be a little slippery sometimes. So you're going to want to make sure that you give it a good tug to see if it'll stick. And once you all are ready for the next step, someone let me know, please. Also, if you would like to turn on your video, that's fine too. If not, that's cool too. Also, questions. If you have questions at any time, please stop me because I might just ramble while we do this. So lots of good information on the sheet that I included in the kits. The story of the Dreamcatcher is on one of the sides. I normally would tell that story, but traditionally we only tell traditional stories such as this one in the winter when there's a blanket of snow on the ground. So I included it anyway so that you all can look at that story and kind of know the story. So all right, it looks like at least a couple people have theirs tied. So your next step, and this doesn't really matter if you are right or left-handed, you can go in either direction. So I'm right-handed, but because I'm doing it backwards, it will be kind of backwards. But essentially what you're doing is creating these little loops on the hoop to start. And to do that, you're going to, I hope you all can see this well. You're gonna take your thread and go over kind of the front of your dream catcher. And then while you keep it there, you're gonna go behind that hoop, and then all of your thread has to come back through this loop you just created. So it's kind of hard to show you at this time, but I'll show you what it will look like looped on there. So once you have it looped on there, it'll kind of look like the thread is crossed, like a little awareness ribbon, you know, kind of looking thing. And when you pull it, it should just pull tight here. So this should get tighter. And when you make your dream catcher, you have a couple options. You can make the sections smaller, and that'll make it more complex. So you'll go around the dream catcher more times, or you can make it a little bigger, and then it'll be a little less complex and easier for you to do the next steps when we're doing the middle part. So essentially that's the same process that you're going to do all the way around. Usually when I make dream catchers of this size, I'll space out my my sections about maybe 1.5 inches, just so it's not like too complex, because when you start getting into the middle, your holes are a little smaller. So it's a little harder to do sometimes when you get more complicated. So as you go around, you're going to want to try and make your sections the same size. So again, that process is over the front of the dream catcher, behind the back, and then you're going to push all of the string back through the dream catcher until it loops onto your hoop. So you'll know if you did it right if your sinew stays in place. If you were to just kind of go over the hoop without looping back through, it'll slide really easy and not stay kind of knotted on there. So if you think you have it, you can go ahead until you get all the way around, and then I'll show you the next step. When you get kind of maybe about 1 inch away from your first one that you made, you'll try and end there. You don't want to end like right on top of this knot, and you don't want to end like too far over. So maybe about like 1 inch away, you'll end your first circle around the dream catcher. And if anyone has questions, please let me know so that we can correct it. And like I said, if you're left or right-handed, it doesn't really matter. You can work in either direction. So. I'm trying to think of what else might be pertinent to your things. I know on like the sheet that I gave you all in the kits, I had some Ojibwe words for various parts of the Dreamcatcher or Dreamcatcher story. So I can go over those and teach you all those. Or maybe just like talk about the First Nation Center or things like that too. Or Mary could talk more about the read-in if she wanted to. But first with the Ojibwe words, there's 6 of them that are on there. So the first one, the word for Dreamcatcher, is Bawajige Nagwagan. And that is the kind of literal translation of that one is like a dream net or a dream snare. So the idea behind dream catchers is that they are to capture bad dreams and only let the good ones pass through. So traditionally, these dream catchers would have been given to like little babies or children because we know that kids are really innocent and kind of untouched by a lot of the world around them until they get older. So children and babies, especially in indigenous cultures, but specifically in Ojibwe culture are really sacred. So we took a lot of care in making sure that all of our children had Dreamcatchers when they were first born, and other things like that. So really putting a lot of time and energy into making sure that our kiddos are safe and stuff like that. So dang, Caitlin, you're working real fast. Let me just go around all the way on mine. I'm talking too much. So with the dream catchers, the next step we're going to do is essentially the same process, but on the strings that you just put around the hoop. So got a couple more that I'll do, and then I'll show you the next step. So the next step, I'm going to be working in the left direction now, or in the other direction now, because I switched my dream catcher. But what you're going to do, this part's easiest to do. I'm trying to find where the best place to put this is. This part's easiest to do if you grab the end of your thread now. So this one right here was the last one that I made, and this one over here was the first one that I made. So what is going to happen now is you're going to take the end of your thread and put it through from front to back. But what you want to do is at the same time, kind of pull it back to the front, making sure that it's in the loop of your thread. And there's a couple ways that you can do that if that doesn't make sense. So essentially you're, again, creating that loop, but on the thread now. And you can, as you pull it into either the right or left direction, whichever way you're working, it'll tighten everything up. And with a dream catcher, you want to make sure that everything's pulled really tight. So usually as I'm working, I'll hold my previous knot so it stays tight. So if that way didn't make sense, you can kind of break it down into a few more steps. So you'll put it from the front to the back through your loop, and then you can pull it all the way to the back and then put it through the loop you just created, if that makes more sense. So pulling it back to the front through the loop. But I try to do this step all at once. So I'll put it through the back, but then immediately pull it back through the front, making sure it loops through my thread to create kind of that knot. If you all want to do that next step, and if that doesn't make sense, please let me know and I can show you all again. And you're just going to keep doing that until you get to the middle. So as you continue to do it, so I'll show both ways again. So here's my next one that I'm working on. Where is a good place to put this? And I'm going to put I'll use my left hand so it's kind of not in the camera. So you're going to go through the loop from front to back, and you can pull that all the way through. And then you have this loop that you just created. So this is the one that's loose. And then from back to front, you're going to pull all of your thread back through. So it's the same process that you did on the hoop, just now on the thread. So you're kind of going around the front of the string and then through the back through the loop you just created. So the way that I do it is just all at one time. I will put my thread just a little bit through the back, and then pull it all the way to the front immediately. So whichever way makes more sense for you, just making sure that you get this nice little loop on the thread. Yeah, so when you're doing these dream catchers, you want to try and pull them pretty tight, because the tighter the dream catcher is, the more it's said to catch the bad dreams, and let the good ones pass. And the neat thing about dream catchers is that they really need like no maintenance or anything like that until they get like too loose, because over time you do notice that even like a super tight dream catcher will get pretty loose, and that's from the bad dreams struggling to get out of the web. So the good dreams are said to pass through the middle of the dream catcher, so we always leave kind of a maybe like a half inch or sometimes a little bigger center hole. So as you continue to work and see the kind of the way the dream catcher spirals as you keep doing it, you'll see where you need to end your dream catcher to get that center hole. A couple other kind of traditional teachings about dream catchers is that nothing should ever be kind of hung in the center of the dream catcher, because that's where the good dreams go through. So you want to make sure that we're not blocking any of the good dreams, and only allowing the bad dreams to get stuck. A lot of people will put a like bead or a couple beads in the web, and that's usually okay as long as, again, nothing's blocking that center. Even things like hanging off the bottom of the dream catcher are okay, and things like that. Just making sure, again, not to block that center hole. So other than that, like, dream catchers are pretty simple once you get the hang of the web part. And like I said, you can get more complex or things like that. Usually I bring example of a finished one, but I forgot it today. The finished one I usually use is a little bit more complex than the one that I'm making currently. But so I'm at my, I like completed my circle, and then I'm just going to continue on and keep going in a spiral on each of these new threads now. So these are the new ones that I just created, and I'm just going to keep doing that same process on all of these until I get to the middle. So if anyone has questions, please let me know, or anything like that. Usually we do this Dreamcatcher workshop with the Native Nation Student Org, and we had one last semester, but I'm really excited to be able to do it again this semester. And the First Nation Center usually has like Dreamcatcher materials at all times, and sometimes we'll teach people how to harvest the red willow to make the traditional style ones. But there's only a kind of certain window of time in which you harvest red willow. So it's usually only harvested in the spring before the leaves come out, and then in the fall after the leaves have been shed. So when the red willow is kind of in that like growing stage, we don't want to harvest the red willow because that'll harm the plant and prevent it from continuing to grow. So making sure that we're harvesting sustainably is really important, as I think this week is Earth Week. Yeah, Earth Day, Earth Week is this week. So that's something that's really important, as well as just making sure that materials, if they're taken from from nature are harvested sustainably. And with traditional knowledge, there is like various seasons and things are harvested. So it's important to do that. Hi, Salisa.
Hey, Cassie.
How's it going?
Good. Oh, kids are yelling. I'm here.
Perfect. Did you pick up a kit from the YU to make, Salisa?
No, I didn't get to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we just kind of talked about it, and we're just in the process of completing our Dreamcatcher and just going around. So I'm just kind of rambling on about random Dreamcatcher and Ojibwe stuff. So if you have any questions or anything about Dreamcatchers or anything like that, let me know. I also don't think I ever continued with the Ojibwe words. So again, that first one that we kind of talked about was Buwajige Nagwagan. And again, that's just translated as kind of like a dream snare, a dream web. The next word, when we were talking about the traditional materials that dream catchers were made out of, is Misquabi mug. And that is a red willow or red osier dogwood, which red willow is really important to a lot of our other traditional practices as well. So one of our traditional medicines, which for Ojibwe people, we have 4 kind of more sacred medicines. We have sage, cedar, sweetgrass, and tobacco. And before kind of trade happened, and before we got the the form of tobacco that you all probably know, like pipe tobacco, tobacco leaves, we have the red willow to use as our traditional tobacco or our asema. So that the way that we used the red willow to make our traditional kind of medicine or our traditional tobacco and asema was by scraping the bark of the red willow. And usually the red willow wasn't like smoked or anything like that, the way that the media and stereotypes kind of portrays Native people as always, smoking peace pipes and things like that. Our traditional medicines were sometimes smoked, but usually just put into a fire or offered in some other way, usually through smoke, but not smoking or inhaling it, things like that. So again, red willow is really important to us. And just like the story of the Dreamcatcher that's on your, like in your kits, if you got one, we have a story of how red willow came to be too. So usually the First Nation Center in like February-ish, when there's snow on the ground, we'll do storytelling nights. So a lot of those traditional stories kind of talking about some of these things are discussed. So if you're interested in learning more of our traditional stories and things like that, definitely be on the lookout for the next storytelling night next winter. So it's always really, really exciting time to kind of just slow down when there's not a whole bunch of things to be doing in the winter, and just enjoy the company of others and listen to traditional stories. So the next Ojibwe word on our list is and that is our word for sinew. So that's the word for the like natural sinew, not the artificial sinew, but it can be used for both. So just know that it's the type of sinew that's made out of like deer tendons and stuff that it's actually talking about. And then from the Dreamcatcher story, kind of our characters in that traditional story is a grandmother, a spider, and the grandson. So those are our next three words. And the way that we say grandmother is nokomis. So nokomis is kind of an all-encompassing words for a couple of things. So when we're talking about like the moon, we refer to the moon as like grandmother moon. So if someone were to ask you if you've seen nokomis, they're probably asking you if you've seen the moon, if it's nighttime. Otherwise, if they know your grandmother like in real life as a person, then they could be asking about your grandmother in real life too. But if they're referring to like the night sky and asking if you've seen nokomis, it usually means have you seen the moon tonight, which is super cool. And then our next word is asabakeshi, which is our word for spider. So that one is a little bit longer. And if you know anything about the Ojibwe language, it's that we have a lot of vowels in the Ojibwe language. So our words get pretty long sometimes. So asabageshi, or sometimes it'll be asabakeshi with a K instead of a G. And that is our Ojibwe word for a spider. And then our last word that we have on this list is nujishe, and that is the word for grandson. So in the Ojibwe language, we have kind of these more nasalized sounds sometimes. Women particularly have a hard time doing these nasalized sounds, but it's kind of like you're trying to say the word out of your nose. You're trying to talk out of your nose and make it a really kind of nasally sound, and nujishe is one of those words. So that ending, you kind of got to try and push it out of your nose, and I'm really bad at doing that. So again, the word for grandson is nujishe. How is it coming with Dreamcatchers? Anyone all the way to the middle yet?
I think we're getting pretty close, Cassie. How small should that middle hole be?
So right now mine is probably like the 2 inches across. You want to make it so that like you can just put your finger through the middle. So about as wide across as your finger. So once you get to that point, let me know and I'll teach you how to tie it off.
So Cassie, so this is the one that that Josie made.
Yep.
And I guess I can put it against me. And so if they get full of dreams, full of bad dreams, what do you do?
So you can either get a new Dreamcatcher or you can take that one apart and put new sinew on it if the hoop part is still good.
Okay.
So once they get pretty loose, you'll want to redo them or get a new one. Or if you notice that they're not effective anymore, then you can change the sinew. The other kind of teaching in kind of regards to the release of the bad dreams from the web is that with every sunrise, even if you don't see the sun, if it's like a cloudy day or something, the sunrise is what dissipates the bad dreams from the web and kind of like gets rid of them. So that's one of the other kind of teachings about why the web gets loose, other than that the bad dreams are kind of struggling in the web, is that
you can see this is really loose.
Yeah, so if Josie wanted to, she could redo it. I noticed there's also a question in the chat. That's a great question, Tanya. So if you do put beads on, some people will just put beads for like decoration, but usually if it's a more kind of traditional dream catcher, using like the red willow, or even with these metal hoops, some people will just put a single bead in the web somewhere to symbolize that spider. So Essentially, without telling you the story of the Dreamcatcher, the spider is the one that kind of showed us how to make a web as a gift, basically as a sign of thanks. So in order to pay honor to the spider and thank him for the gift that he gave us, a lot of people will put a bead to symbolize the spider in the web. But oftentimes with like modern dream catchers now, a lot of people will just make them for decoration and put lots of beads in them. Sometimes like you'll see fully beaded dream catchers where even the hoop has beads around it, the web is fully beaded, things like that. And that's kind of a more modern style. There's definitely no kind of right or wrong way, I would say, to make a dream catcher, other than trying to follow some of those traditional, I guess, protocols of like not sticking something in the center or things like that. Also, this style of dream catcher is kind of a newer, well, maybe not a newer style. It's kind of a less, I don't want to say that either. It's not less traditional. It's still traditional, but we have another style of dream catcher that actually looks like a spider's web. And those dream catchers are probably our original form of dream catcher. I'm going to try and pull up a picture to show you all, just to show you what I'm talking about. Because it's kind of cool to see the traditional style. Those ones, the more traditional ones, there's a lot more teachings behind them. And usually those ones can only be made at nighttime. That's not a great picture, hold on. Those ones are less common now, I would say, but those ones were the ones we probably made first and then adapted them, similar to the way we adapted our moccasins when like Europeans and settlers came over, and we had like first contact with them. So because we have two styles of dream catch or moccasins as well too. One that's kind of more traditional and then one that's a little less traditional, but still relatively so. I'm having a hard time finding a good picture of this. I should just have one as an example. I guess this one is pretty close. So I'll just share my screen. So it's kind of hard to see because the picture is so big in Pinterest, but this is kind of what it would look like. There would be those lines coming off from like the hoop, and then lines going across to each of those connecting them. So that's our more kind of traditional style of dream catcher than the ones we're making. But again, there's a lot more significance and teachings that go into that one. So those are ones that you probably don't see too often. Is anyone ready to tie off their dream catcher?
I think we might be, but we might have also gotten a knot towards the middle somehow.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty common sometimes too. So to tie off, I'm gonna have a hard time doing this left-handed, but I'll try. So essentially what you're doing is you're making another knot in the same place that you did your last one. So this is going to be really hard to see. I need, how am I going to do this? It's very light. Okay. So your last hole that you created, so this one is my last one right here. You're going to go back through that one from front to back, and then the hole that your how do I explain this? The hole that your last knot is on, you're gonna go through that one from the way from the back to front. So again, the last loop you made, you're gonna go from front to back, and then the hole next to it, you're gonna go from back to front with your thread, but don't pull it all the way through just yet. You wanna pull it most of the way through, and then what you're gonna do is this loop that you still have, you're gonna take your thread and go through the loop. So I'll try and get a good shot of that. So this is my loop right here that I still have of the thread. And I'm just gonna take the end of my thread and go through that loop and pull everything tight. It's kind of like if any of you sew, how you end your sewing. So it should create let me see if I can get a better, I should really do this with dark sinew on a light hoop instead of the other way around. But there is my bigger knot that you can see, and it should hold everything in place once you get it tight enough. But let me untie this quick and show you all that again, because that probably made no sense. All right. So, let me actually, I'm gonna actually make my sections a little bit bigger, so it might be easier to see quick. I'll just undo a couple wraps quick. Okay. So what you're gonna do is take your thread. This is the last one that I created right here where my thread is coming off. And what you're gonna do is to go back down through that one you just created. So from front to back, and then the one previous, so you gotta move backwards, not forward. You're gonna go from back to front through that one, and then pull most of your thread through. And then once you have most of your thread through there, you're left with this little loop, and you're just gonna put all of your thread through that loop and pull it tight. So once you do that, you can do that same process like 2 or 3 times in order to get a good knot that stays. Just do it in the same kind of holes that you did it in. So the one you previously, or the one you just made, and then the one previous. I hope that makes sense. Yep, so once you have it all tied off and you think it's gonna stay, you can cut off the extra sinew. And then you can cut it pretty close. And a lot of people after their first Dreamcatcher, if they're not too confident in their knot, you can put like a little drop of super glue on the end of the sinew too, if you really want it to stay. Otherwise, if you do the knot like 2 or 3 times, it should stay, as long as you're doing the knot in the same spot every time. So just like when we tied the send you onto the Dreamcatcher hoop. You're going to want to tie it a couple times to make sure that it stays. Does anyone have any other questions or anything about Dreamcatchers or Ojibwe language or the Read-In, the First Nation Center, the Office of Intercultural Student Success? Anything? Otherwise, like, if you're finished with your Dreamcatcher, good job. I bet it looks awesome. If you didn't pick up a kit, I'll leave them in the YU and just let the YU front desk know that people might stop by over the next couple of days too if you want a kit. Otherwise, you can go pick up another kit, things like that. So those will be available to you. And if you still think that you need help making a Dreamcatcher, if you decide to pick up another one or go get a kit, feel free to send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat real quick. Otherwise, there are a few kind of good YouTube videos out there to kind of show you the process to do that as well. So thank you all for coming. I love making Dreamcatchers, so I just put my email in the chat if anyone needs help. So
Thank you so much. This is awesome.
I love
Go get a kit.
Yes, go pick up a kit. There's lots of colors too. So if the YU front desk just kind of hands you one, ask them if you can see the other colors, because you can pick what color you want. So
we know the first Dreamcatcher that Josie made, we were at Fond du Lac at the community center, and elders were, you know, at each table telling stories and teaching. And she said to them, and she was 6 at the time, and she said, well, I've been having dreams about zombies. and they said, well, this will take care of it. And it did. It did.
Good. Yeah.
And then I think it got full, and this was another one she made, but I think it's really good at protecting her from zombies. So
that's awesome. Yeah, it's always fun to do that with elders too. They have a lot of good stories to tell about the Dreamcatchers as well. But for sure, if any of you have like kids in your life or like maybe little cousins or anything running around, you know how kind of detrimental bad dreams can be for them sometimes. Like it really affects them. So that's another reason we teach this, is so that our kiddos can have good dreams instead of bad dreams, so we can kind of protect them for as long as possible. So yeah, and Dreamcatchers are just kind of like a fun little thing to do too. So especially like in the winter when you might not want to go outside or things like that. So yeah, I definitely appreciate y'all coming. So if you do have questions, I'll stick around for a little bit. If not, thank you and have a great night.